There are over 7 billion people inhabiting our planet. This means there are over 7 billion different experiences occurring in each moment. With each experience, we create our own unique story. Oftentimes, the very stories we create separate us. But are we that different? The same stories that separate us can be the glue that binds us together. I'm Paul E. Hendricks, an author searching for more human connection. Welcome to The Bridge. At only 21 years of age, Chelsea Abril lives a rock star lifestyle, jet-setting between Los Angeles, the Big Island, and Oahu, taking in the beauty that surrounds her through her camera lens. She's a perfect example of a powerful woman taking life by the reins and riding at full speed. The inspiration behind her life of adventure may surprise you. Each episode of The Bridge is centered on a thought-provoking theme. In this story, we explore triumph through adversity.
I was thinking of what I was going to say, and I was like, well, I had a roof over my head, and I had food on the table, and a family that loved me. My parents were together, I had all that. But I think like many of the youth in Hawaii, I was exposed to domestic violence and drugs and alcohol and sex and all those things at a pretty young age. And so when I tell my story to other people, a lot of times I get, well, I can't believe we're not more fucked up. And I kind of laughed about that at first, and I didn't think much of it, but I really could have gone a lot of other ways. I could have gone to drinking or drugs and rebellion and all that, but I didn't. Instead of that, I chose to write, and I chose to express myself through art.
So what do you do for a living?
I'm a photographer by passion and by trade.
Right on. How did you come about becoming a photographer?
My sister was actually, she's not a photographer, but she brought her camera with her one year when she came to visit us. And then I was like, my sister takes pictures, I want to take pictures too. And so over the years, that's how it started, and then we kind of grew into our own different things. She likes to shoot architecture, and I shoot people. So anytime there was fighting in the house, or my brother was angry, or my dad was angry, my parents were fighting, or someone had left and I wasn't sure they were coming back, or someone was sick, or someone was hurt and things weren't okay, or if someone was crying in the shower, I would write. And I would go in my room and I would shut myself in and I would maybe play some music until I couldn't hear anything else, and I would write, and I would write, and I would write, and I would cry, and then it would be over. I also had a brother. He was 4 years older than me, so whenever I was, whenever I'd get into the grade that he was just in, or middle school, he'd be moving to high school, and so I never got to experience school with him. And so going through middle school, or actually going on my first day of high school, I remember, and he had just graduated, so he was already out, and it was my first day, and I was really excited. And I remember my dad called me as soon as school finished, and he said, I'm coming to get you, we're going to the hospital. And I said, what's wrong? Who's in the hospital? Who's sick? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? My mind's running, I just want to know what's happening. And he said, your brother got in an accident, we're going to the hospital.
Well, what was your relationship like with your brother?
At that point, we had a very wishy-washy relationship. I was very spiteful, I was very mean, I was very vengeful. We'd had some issues with domestic violence, and so I was very resentful towards all of that, and I took it out on my brother. So we didn't have a very good relationship. We rarely talked. He had been in and out of jail at that point, and I'd gone to visit him a few times because my mom was like, if you don't go, then whatever. So I would go, and this big disconnect, wanting to be there, and wanting to be caring, and being angry. So we'd had a weird relationship, and I wasn't really talking to him at that point. That was the first time I saw my brother in that hospital bed. And so we went in, and I remember it was just pandemonium. My brother had 7 grand mal seizures. He had been in a head-on collision, and we walked in when he was having one. And I remember everybody was running. My dad was running. The nurses were running, and the doctors were running. Everybody was running, and I couldn't move.
I remember watching it happen, and I could hear the bed shaking, and I couldn't close my eyes, and I couldn't look away, and I couldn't move. And I was watching it all happen, and I just couldn't move. And I was watching it, and I didn't realize that I was crying so hard or that I was screaming until some woman who was in the ER came and hugged me, and she held me, and then I could hear myself screaming. I could still hear the bed, and I could hear my dad yelling my brother's names, like, I know it's okay, I'm here, it'll be okay, it'll be okay. And I just remember screaming, and I couldn't stop, and that was the first time I saw my brother there.
But because of that accident, because of the seizures, he was on all these medications, it made him a little slower to comprehend, so that made it quicker for him to be upset that he couldn't keep up in conversations and things like that.
So I had this big disconnect between wanting to have this relationship with my brother and wanting him to love me and wanting us to love each other and it to be all okay and we'd be the best friends, and at the same time being spiteful and angry and vengeful. And but when things were wrong, when he was hurt, I couldn't hate my brother if he was hurt. I couldn't be mad if he wasn't okay. I couldn't hate him if he was dead.
Well, we had actually gone to the beach that day. We'd been calling him, come to the beach with us. He's like, no, I'm going to go to town. We're like, all right, whatever. So we went to the beach, and when we came home, our neighbors were like, oh, the cops were just here. And so my experience with the cops was they were always there for my brother, and it was like a couple days before Christmas. We hadn't had a Christmas all together as a family in years because, you know, I was gone or he was in jail or someone was always missing. And so this was going to be the first year that we would have Christmas together. And so I was furious. I was like, this motherfucker, like, he ruined Christmas again. Like, now we're not going to be together, and great, now he's in trouble. He probably did something, now he's in trouble. And we went home and we were calling people, and the police were like, oh, we can't tell you over the phone. We're like, well, why not? Like, is he okay? Is he alive? And like, we can't tell you over the phone. So from then, we're like panicking because we can't find him. He's not answering his phone. And then a friend of ours calls us from the emergency room, like an old friend of ours, and she called and she said, you guys need to get here right now. I'm like, what's wrong? Is he okay? He's like, he was in an accident. He has some really bad, severe head trauma, and you guys need to get here right now. And she's been working there for 20 plus years. And so we asked her, is he okay? And for her to say no, we knew something, it was bad.
And this was the second time I saw him in that hospital bed. And this time, I remember walking through the same emergency room doors, and this time it was quiet, and nobody was running. And all I could think was, no, why isn't anybody running? I need you to run, I need you to fix him. And I remember walking in, and we went to go look at him, and for all the world, he looked perfect. He looked like he was just sleeping, and I wanted to shake him awake, and he needed to be okay. He needed to be okay so I could hate him. He couldn't die. And so he was medevac to Queens, and 2 days later, he died.
What was the impact of this on your family as a whole?
For me, my mother was so in love with my brother. Like, he was the sun in the stars, and she was so in love with him, and they had this amazing relationship together. And so I was really afraid for her. My dad and she had just lost both her parents, so it was a hard year for my mom, and I was really worried about her. So we watched her, and it was actually, contrary to what I thought was going to happen, it actually brought us closer. Like, it was the first time I remember ever really being able to grieve together as a family. I never liked it. I never liked being in with my parents grieving. I didn't like to see them cry. I didn't like them to see me cry. And so from the time of the accident to the funerals and things like that, it actually brought us a lot closer. Like, it always feels weird to say because I don't want to say that I'm glad that he died. But the gift in that was that we didn't have to worry anymore. We weren't always worrying where he was, if he was okay, was he in jail? You know, whenever we couldn't get a hold of him, we were worried. And it was this constant worry of if he was okay and where he was, and it was stressful. It was really a taut line that we were all with each other. And so when he passed, we knew that he was safe. So there was this removal of worry, stress, that now we knew he wasn't out there wandering around, he wasn't getting into trouble, he was safe. He left and he was safe.
Maybe almost a year had gone by, and I woke up one day, I was going about my business, and I realized that I wasn't angry anymore. And I cried about that more than anything else, and I didn't realize how much space it had taken up, and that I had filled that space with love instead. And so in my brother dying, I got to have a relationship with him that I never had when he was alive. And so he taught me how to love. He gave me an appreciation for life and for people. And I'm so grateful that I have this story to tell. And I'm so grateful that my words give him life. And that now he isn't just alive to me, he's alive to you because you've heard of him and you know his name. His name's Kaino, I don't think I mentioned that. But. And so of all the adversity, losing my brother and learning what love is like and learning to live loud and everywhere all at once, that's my triumph. So thank you.
If you or someone you know has a great story to tell, we'd love to hear it. Email us at thebridge@lightstyleonline.com. Follow me on Twitter at Paul E. Hendricks. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/thebridgelive.